In the shadow of the great figures of Dutch painting, such as Rubens, Van Dyck or Jordans, a vast trend of the so-called lesser masters evolved. Each of them pursued excellence in a specific ability. The 17th century was a time of secular themes and genre painting. The change in the subject matter is primarily related to bourgeois patronage. Strong competition made artists specialize in chosen, sometimes very narrow forms of painting. Many of them chose broadly taken views for their interest: view of the sea, seascape artists, urban landscape, townscape artists, or the privacy of the church or home. Those paintings were usually small. Being chiefly presented in bourgeois residences, they had to fit their display conditions. The effect of those representations never aimed at color glamour or composition dash. Instead, they served a gradual, lasting contemplation of life and human condition. Hence the motif vanitas, combining beauty with waning, so popular at the time. Apart from coarse scenes depicting the so-called cheerful parties, in the 1930s a peasant theme emerged, close to the tradition of Bruegel and often focused on portraying men at work. The interiors of John III's royal apartments once displayed many paintings typical to that culture. The Polish king thought highly of genre painting, so popular in Europe at that time. He had a chance to get to know it better during his educational journey with his brother Marek. Not without cause, one of the major rooms joining the bedrooms of the king and the queen was called the Dutch cabinet. The most prized items in the Sobieskis collection were no doubt Rembrandt's paintings. The canvases of the Netherlandish painter decorated the royal bedroom and the Dutch cabinet. Its present decor dates from the time of Augustus II the Strong. The lot of the royal residence in Wilanów was incidentally shared with that of Mr. Peter Zahler, a citizen of Coburg, Germany. In August 2012, he reported to the Wilanów Palace Museum curator he was in possession of a painting bearing Wilanów collection marks on its reverse side. It could very likely be a complement to a gilded, ornamented frame, which was marked as belonging to the lost painting The Cobbler. The photos he attached seemed to imply that the cutout canvas, purchased in the 1970s at a flea market, might have been the lost painting mentioned in Wilanów inventory. To verify the conjecture, experts from Wilanów Museum went to Coburg, where they confirmed the authenticity of the painting and the preserved marks of the Wilanów collection. The painting called The Cobbler had been in the Wilanów collection from at least middle 19th century. It was probably stolen in late 1944 or early 1945. It was included in the war losses list and the register of cultural objects lost as a result of the Second World War. It returned to Wilanów after 70 years. The 5th of October 2012 marked the conclusion of the story. The Cobbler returned to the Wilanów Historical Collection. Dutch School oil canvas, format 31.8 to 32.1 by 32.5 to 24 centimeters, with Wilanów collection marks on the reverse side. It can now be seen in the Dutch cabinet. The history of the recovered canvas and its relation to the 17th century painting of the North evokes the times of splendor of the Wilanów residence, whose owner was not only a mighty monarch and a splendid commander, but also a refined arts lover. Our expert in technology and painting techniques is a distinguished artist and copier, Professor Jerzy Nowosielski of the Academy of Fine Arts in Warsaw. Professor, tell me, what was the specific technology of creating a painting in the period of the 17th century Dutch school, from which the Cobbler dates? Techniques and the technology of Dutch painting in the 17th century were very specific. Namely, it was limited by size, as Dutch artists painted on rather small surfaces. What was the reason for that? Probably smaller interiors. The picture was meant to be dominant not through its size, but rather its content, its color, and its subject matter. Another thing specific to Dutch painting in the 17th century was the technique and the technology of those painters. Those small paintings were dominated by form, but their method was primarily characterized by a very specific attitude to the subject, both purely artistic and technological. The Cobbler was painted on canvas. Let's talk about pictures painted on wood. How did the technique differ depending on the used material? Yes, there was a difference. It was visible mainly in the preparation of the support. As we know, painters chiefly used oak boards, hardwood, and sometimes ash boards, but oak was predominant. As far as canvas support is concerned, they used linen, at first hand-woven and then also machine-woven. The difference between wood and canvas was noticeable in the preparation of the support ground. The main ingredients of the ground, just as of any ground, were a filler and a binder. In both cases, oil binders were used, based on bleached linseed oil, to make a long story short. The fillers, however, were somewhat different. Here we have an example of such a support. It is a lovely landscape of a Dutch painter, Riesdael. The ground was pure royal with just a touch of probably white lead. A very thin layer was put on 3 times at the most, so the wood structure, the fibers, showed through, and other layers were put on them. The next one was certainly the so-called imprimatura. Canvas supports took a similar technology. However, the filler besides the white lead was chalk, although it sometimes happened in wood supports as well. Takiego wypełniacza w postaci kredy. Chociaż też się zdarzało również, proszę Państwa, i w podobraziach. Here the number of layers was also essential. Też tu była istotna ilość. Not more than 3 or 4 layers were put. Nie więcej niż 3-4 warstwy. Those were grounds with oil added, the so-called emulsion grounds. Why so? Since canvas was flexible, so had to be the ground, not to crack and break. Wood was less demanding, and the grounds were more absorptive. Professor, you are not only a tutor but also an artist, and you make copies of old masters. Do you, in your contemporary painting, not copies, do you use those techniques? Yes, absolutely yes. In my contemporary painting, I definitely use those skills and methods of ancient masters.
dawnych mistrzów, między innymi właśnie jeżeli chodzi o
Also those of the technology of Dutch painting.
malarstwa holenderskiego. Przede wszystkim
Primarily in the first layers when I sketch or draft in watercolors. Later on, local tones come, blending my painting.
Później właśnie tony lokalne, scalające ten mój obraz.
I do them in various tempera techniques. I start with casein, vitelline or gum tempera.
Czy od tempery żółtkowej, czy gumowej.
Later, locally or comprehensively, I use the oil resinous technique. Glazes come at the end.
I na końcu laserunki i tak dalej. A więc taki skrócony
It's an abridged method of ancient masters. Yes, I use it.
Ale absolutnie tak.
Thanks for your time, Professor. You're all welcome to Wilanów Palace Museum. Thank you, all the best.
Wszystkiego dobrego.